Now when you're cooking oil free, sometimes you have vegetables like onion, they will cook in their own water. Or when you are cooking rice or lentils, you can add water. But dishes like Sabudana Khichadi or poha, they neither have enough water to cook by itself, nor can you add water in it. So traditionally, oil is used as a medium of cooking for these dishes, and if you have ever cooked them, you notice that you put a lot of oil in these dishes, right? So instead of oil, in whole foods plant-based cooking, we are going to replace the medium of cooking with steam. Whether your pressure cooker looks like this or it looks like this, it does not matter. You can still cook yummy, healthy, delicious whole foods plant-based dishes in either of these. Now pressure cooking is actually steaming under pressure. And why do you need to pressure cook? Is because A, it cuts down the cooking time. Then secondly, there are certain lentils that are really hard to cook. So I'm just giving you a brief summary of commonly used Indian lentils. Some of them can be easily cooked without a pressure cooker. So if you do not have a pressure cooker, all is not lost. So stick with me. These are mung lentils, mung beans, and if you are cooking them without pressure cooker, soak them for a few hours before cooking. Then this is chana dal, and that also cooks easily if you soak it a couple hours before cooking. Then I have masoor dal or red lentils, and these cook really easily even without soaking. They will cook within a 15 minutes. So if you do not have pressure cooker and if you do not have time to soak, these are your go-to lentils. They also taste very nice. And then I have these two, which is arhar dal. This is a yellow arhar dal and this is a green arhar dal, or these are split peas, split pea lentils, and these are particularly hard to cook. So if you do not have a pressure cooker, I would suggest that you avoid these split lentils, split peas lentils, or arhar dal or tuar dal. Now I have a big enough pressure cooker that I usually cook two things in it. So I will cook a very common Indian dish, khichadi, and then I will also cook Sabudana Khichari at the same time in the same pressure cooker. Now khichadi, it is, I sometimes compare it with exercising. Like, it's not exciting or it's not something that you always look forward to, but you never regret it. And khichadi is like that. You will never regret eating it. It is so good on your stomach and your digestive system. So for khichadi, you need a cup of rice and a cup of lentils. Here I am going to use the mung beans. Those are my favorite beans to make a khichadi with, but it tastes good with any kind of lentils. I have some chopped ginger, and I have some garlic. It's totally optional to use garlic, and I will use some spices, and I will explain that as I go. But I will use ajwain and cumin seeds and turmeric and hing and some salt. So I will now mix the rice and lentils together, and I will give this mixture a quick rinse. Okay, so I rinsed it. Now if you have a favorite recipe, totally follow that. Now in Maharashtra, we use a tadka and then that is used as a garnish. So instead of that, I am going to put all the spices within the khichdi I am going to cook. So I will add a little bit of mustard seed. And with this particular dal, what goes really well is ajwain seeds. So let's put ajwain. And ginger, pieces of ginger. Turmeric. Hing. And garlic. As I said, garlic is totally optional. A lot of people do not eat garlic, which is totally fine. And then I have 2 cups of water, which I am going to mix. And then salt to taste. So this is now ready to go in the pressure cooker. So I will set it aside and I will prepare the sabudana. Now, one of the hardest Indian dishes to cook is Sabudana Khichari, and not because it is very complex or it uses lot of ingredients, neither of that, but it's just that sabudana can be very tricky to cook. One time I have embarrassed myself by inviting friends over to eat Sabudana Khichadi and it turned out so bad, and from that time on I never tried to make Sabudana Khichadi until my friend Pradnya told me that I could steam it. Actually, cooking sabudana with oil is what is the trickiest, and steaming is extremely forgiving. So I have noticed that I can put it in a double boiler, cook it for 15-20 minutes, steam it that way, or even under pressure. You can cook it. I'm going to cook it with khichdi today, for example, and it will be fine. Now, for reasons that I have never understood, Sabudana Khichadi is used as a food that is allowed while fasting. So, given that in mind, there are a very few ingredients that go in this. Now, I have this sabudana which I soaked last night. When you soak sabudana, you put water in it, rinse the sabudana, and either rinse all the water out or leave just a tiny amount of water on the top. Then if you started with 1 cup of sabudana, I would take 1/4 cup of ground peanut powder. And I have 1 small potato chopped. I keep the skin on. If you want, you can remove the skin. Okay, so I am adding salt to my taste. Mixing potatoes. Ginger. And ground roasted peanut powder. Okay. Mix all that nicely. Some people like to put a pinch of sugar in their Sabudana Khichadi. So this is now ready to go in the pressure cooker. This is my pressure cooker. I will put this mesh at the bottom and then add some water at the bottom. And like typical Indian people, we don't put just one thing in the pressure cooker, right? We always put something else. If I'm making khichadi, I would sometimes put just potatoes or sweet potatoes along with that. So the khichadi goes and the sabudana goes on the top, and I am going to that there, and I'm going to set it for rice, which is 12 minutes. If you were using your traditional stove top pressure cooker, 3 whistles, and don't worry about sabudana overcooking, it's very forgiving. If you're just cooking sabudana, 10 minutes is enough, but you can overcook it, that's fine. Now start it. Now while this is cooking, I want to tell you about this wonderful book I just got. It's called Nourish by Reshma Shah, MD, and Brenda Davis, who is a registered dietitian and also a dear friend. All of Brenda's books have been an extremely valuable resource for me as I embarked upon this journey towards whole foods plant-based diet. It is a definitive plant-based nutrition guide for families. That's what it says, and that truly it is all about. There's so much information here. You want to know about micronutrients, you want to know about meal planning, what makes a healthy diet, and pregnancy and lactation. So many chapters, so many topics that are covered here. Menu planning and shopping, and just wonderful information. I also want to give you an update on Baba. In the last episode 2 months ago, I mentioned that he had stopped his medication and was doing well. Then a few weeks ago, his blood pressure started to go up again. My guess is that it was due to an inadvertent increase in consumption of saturated fat. It had happened before as well, but back then he was able to tweak it. So in any case, he got back on his medication and his blood pressure is back to normal again. So this means that he will have to be on medication and diet if he wants to keep his blood pressure nice and low. And the medication will allow for this occasional deviation. You go to parties and you can't always stick to the regimen. Over the past decade, I have been building a vegan community locally, and there is one thing I have learned. It is difficult to make this kind of a diet change unless you have the support and encouragement from your immediate family members and friends. If it requires preparing separate meals, it is difficult to sustain. From that point of view, Baba has far exceeded my expectations. This is really important to note for those who are wanting to make the change for their own health, or for doctors who are trying to get their patients to eat better. Here are some things you can try. Invite your friends over to watch these movies: Forks Over Knives, The Game Changers, Code Blue, or seek online resources and communities. Alright, so this is ready now. I'm going to take the lid out. Ooh, look at that. Now, don't worry if your khichdi looks mushy or watery. If you just stir it, it's gonna be alright. Just have to stir it and it will be alright. regular rice and lentil khichadi. Wow, this looks amazing. Look how good it looks.